The danger is that Russia will launch a ballistic missile at you because they are obviously a very high priority target. They're embarrassing Putin in front of his people. They're causing black smoke across the Moscow skyline, across the St. Petersburg skyline.
In 2 years as Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer has made nearly 50 trips abroad to more than 30 countries. Critics call him Never Hear Keir, but the Prime Minister believes it's essential to be in the room to get the best for the UK. He makes his final trip in office to the NATO summit in Turkey, which starts tomorrow. Will it be a fond farewell, though? Perhaps not. President Trump is thought to want to confront the Prime Minister and other NATO allies over defence spending. Well, joining us for more on this is the editor of Defence Analysis, Francis Tusa. Good morning.
Good morning, Kate.
Do you think that President Trump will directly challenge Sir Keir Starmer at this NATO summit, or will it be a broader message to allies about the 3.5%?
There will be generalised attacks on those who would seem to be not pulling their weight. But I would not be surprised, bearing in mind his history of President Trump, singles out the UK. And the fact that in this last week, Italy has overtaken the UK as a defence spender, hitting 2.8% of GDP this year, not in 2030, where the UK on current plans will be 2.7. It's difficult to think that President Trump will miss an opportunity to basically go all out and say what he thinks. And even if he doesn't, it'd be surprising if Pete Hegseth, his Secretary of Defence, doesn't do that as well. He's done it before. So the idea that it's going to be a fond farewell, no, I suspect the real worry is almost that he'll be ignored.
Yes, and I suspect, as always with prime ministers who are on the way out, that's always a difficulty. Although there have been some difficulties, I think it's fair to say, across European nations too. Those European nations want to focus this summit, which is very short, we should say, it's only 2 days. They want to focus this on Ukraine and really trying to get some kind of resolution within that kind of Ukraine space. The Americans want to talk about money. What do you think the outcome of this summit will be? Will there be anything tangible as a result of it?
I suspect it's a two-part summit, which is the part dealing with President Trump and managing that. And then there will be bits possibly just behind closed doors where people go off and talk about Ukraine. And to be fair, that's an area where the UK has had a pretty good record. We were leaders in support for Ukraine. Others have stepped up much more now. So I think it'll be, as we're in that good old football terminology, a game of two halves.
And just finally, I mean, talking about Ukraine, there does seem to have been some movement this week. There's been a phone call between the two sides. Where are we in terms of trying to resolve this conflict?
The opportunity for peace talks, the idea President Putin will sit down for peace talks at the moment is just absolutely not going to happen. The belief is that, I wouldn't quite want to say the tide is turning, but Ukraine has gone from a position of definitely being completely on the defensive to being much more aggressive, taking bits back. It's not exactly a huge offensive, sweeping through and regaining all the lost lands. But is Russia on the front foot on the battlefield? Definitely not. So sadly, it may just be a plan to continue funding and supplying Ukraine so they can continue what they're doing at the moment in the next months, and you have to say it, even years.
Ukraine will be high on the agenda in the upcoming NATO summit in Turkey. The leaders meet at a time when Ukraine is making some progress in its war against Russia. The Times' Maxim has been to central Ukraine on manoeuvres. He writes these great pieces for the Times. I'm sure you've read them. He's been on manoeuvres with a unit which is striking deep into the heart of Russia. We can speak to him now. Maxim, good morning to you.
Good morning.
How much of a game changer is this? These incursions by Ukraine into Russia? They seem to be more frequent, more successful. Is that fair?
That's right. The scale of it is quite astonishing now. The amount that Ukraine is able to send across deep into Russia, across 12 Russian regions in the last week alone, striking oil refineries, striking military warehouses, striking space communication centers, really, really well-defended areas of Russia, including Moscow, St. Petersburg. And it's a testament to Ukrainian ingenuity that a lot of these drones, they're all manufactured in Ukraine with Ukrainian components, but they're benefiting, of course, from Western intelligence gathering. Western intelligence helps them identify the weak points in Russia's defenses, helps them work their way through them, and helps them find the right targets as well.
Forgive me, I don't fully understand how this works. Can they send these drones from where they are in comparative safety in Ukraine, or do they need to get up to the front line, or do they have to cross the front line? How do you send a drone deep into the heart of Russia?
Right, so the drone unit that I was with is a very secretive unit that they'd never spoken to media before, and they were hitting Moscow from a place in central Ukraine, so really very, very far, pretty much as far as you can be from the front lines. The range of these drones is such now that they can do that. The danger is that Russia will launch a ballistic missile at you because they are obviously a very high priority target. They're embarrassing Putin in front of his people. They're causing black smoke across the Moscow skyline, across the St. Petersburg skyline. So they are worth expending a ballistic missile on. And, during that operation, there was a ballistic missile threat, and we had to get to cover away from the launch vehicles as quickly as possible. But as soon as that missile was launched and intercepted, they were back at work sending those drones back over Russia.
And is it kind of like, I'm not in any way trying to downplay it, but I'm trying to think of it from a practical term. Is it kind of like a computer game that they've got a screen in front of them and they're manoeuvring this small craft over a long distance and then finding a target and pressing fire? I mean, how much control do they have on it?
It depends on the type of drone. So during the launch itself, these are pretty big drones. They've got big wingspans, 4 or 5 meters across, and they launch with rockets actually, so they can have a near vertical takeoff. And it's quite an impressive sight to see. There's a lot of tinkering with the engines. There's a lot of attaching warheads at the last moment because obviously once they're primed, they're dangerous. And then they launch in quite a spectacular fashion with rocket boosters. And then, they might be taken over by somebody in a completely different place, in a very kind of safe underground command center, flying with remote control, using cameras. They might be GPS guided. One of the advantages Ukraine has had is in its mid-range strike drones is able to control them very precisely using video feeds. But when you send drones over Russia, they don't have the same Starlink connection over Russia, so they often are guided by GPS coordinates or perhaps AI.
Amazing. And just before you go, it's the NATO summit, we were just talking about it. Does Ukraine just want a continuation of support? Is it expecting anything more than that, or wanting any more than that from a NATO summit?
I think they definitely they need to know that they've got the money. They want to know that there's long-term support. It's not just the 70 billion this year, but what will it be next year? How do we send a message to the Russians that this war is going to cost Russia more than it's going to cost Ukraine, that it's got support? But really, I think very key to Zelensky is he's going to want Patriot missile interceptors. If he's not going to get those, he's going to at least want the licenses to produce them. That is the one problem that Ukraine has that it's not been able to solve itself, is how to shoot down Russian ballistic missiles that are terrorizing civilians in cities across Ukraine. And it really, really wants these missile interceptors able to stop that happening.